Today's talk is called The Two Christmases. And I hope that that sort of intrigued you a little bit to want to know what I'm going to be talking about. I'm actually going to be talking about three different areas of Christmas, in which there are two in each of these three areas. The first one is, I call it the calendar Christmases. In most of the world which we describe as Christendom, those parts of the world which are Christian and celebrate Christmas, we have two different dates on which Christmas is celebrated. I'm lucky because in my situation, since I'm married to Natasha, beautiful Natasha, I get to celebrate on both of those times. One is what is called the Roman Catholic type Christmas, and it is celebrated on December 25th. Then because in the system they use what we call the Gregorian calendar, and so December 25th is the day that this falls on. Now, all of you know that this once was an old Roman holiday called Saturnalia, or Saturnalia. And it was a time of festivities because they only had 360 days in their year, in their calendar. So they had 5 extra days that they didn't know anything to do with, so they just had fun. And they celebrated and had a wonderful time until the next new year began. So, that was replaced when Christendom began. First, they tried to ban this celebration. And it's hard to force people not to have fun. And so what happened was they said, well, if we can't lick them, let's join them. So they overlaid on top of it the idea of the birth of Jesus and changed that to Christmas, a Christ Mass. And they held a Mass, and it was very holy and high, and it was a wonderful time, and changed some of the songs that were rather bawdy and fun, but they changed those songs to much softer songs, but they were very much like this Joy to the World song that we were singing today. Beautiful songs, and we call them carols now, and that sort of took over. But there's another part of the world, more of what we in the United States and in the Western world call the Eastern Bloc, or the Eastern part of Christendom, the Byzantine type of Christ from Byzantium, which is an old name for a town called Constantinople. It's changed again now, but anyway, so that part is called Orthodox Christianity. Orthodox, I love that word, orthodox. That means the straight teaching. The straight teaching. It's the original way of looking at things, the orthodox way of looking at things. That part of the world still celebrates using not the Gregorian calendar, but the older calendar, the Julian calendar, named after Pope Julius. That celebration occurs on January 7th. So I'm very fortunate. I get to have the Christmas that I grew up with on December 25th, and then celebrate again on Christmas, have a different day on January 7th. So anything that didn't come up for me, I can get it again, or make sure that's covered. So that's a good thing. The really odd thing about both of these is this. It's an arbitrary date. Both of them are very arbitrary dates because we have no idea what date Jesus was born. It was just decided, well, let's make it this date. Let's make it December. Make it in December. Some other people say, no, it happened in September. Some say, no, it happened in springtime. There's several different ways of looking at this. But be that as it may, there are two different calendars and two different Christmases. So that takes care of the calendar Christmases. The next part is the part where we have two different celebrations which have blended together to become what we now call Christmas. There is the sort of Yule tide, which was a time that in the northern hemisphere, far up to the north, the people that lived there called the Norsemen, or the Teutonic tribes, had a different type of celebration long before they ever heard of Christianity. This was the Yule tide celebration. There was a huge log that they brought into their longhouses, and they set this afire and had it burning the entire time that the sun was not present in the sky. Because as the earth tilts away from the sun a certain way, as it's revolving around it, the sun actually gets lower and lower on the horizon until it eventually disappears for a few days. So the thinking was, if we keep the light going, we'll be able to bring the sun back. And sure enough, they did it. They were able to bring the sun back, and the sun came back every year because they were burning this Yule log. Of course, during this dark time, and there's only a fire going from these logs and so forth going on, they had to do something with their lives, and so they celebrated and drank a lot and sang songs and gave gifts to one another and put candles upon trees outside and lit up the entire area and just had the best of times. Well, they had a small little gentleman who was an imaginary elf-like creature called Kris Kringle, and he gave gifts and candy to the children and so forth, and they woke up and there they were and so forth. Of course, we all know who was really giving these gifts and candles, but the children really enjoyed this time. Then along comes Christianity, and it starts taking over. And as it does, the two ideas blend together. So you've got this one idea of Christmas, this Yuletide Christmas. And then you've got this other one, which is this Christian idea of Christmas, blending over into it. And the two sort of have blended together into what we have today. Santa Claus drinking a Coke. It's all changed. It's all changed for us. We have sort of this other way of looking at things. So what we've got here is we've got a religious idea, and then we've got sort of a commercial idea, which have blended together to become the two Christmases which we celebrate. Starting first with the Yuletide celebration, then the Christian religious celebration blended together to form the two Christmases that we now enjoy all the time. You know, it's really odd. If you think about the song Santa Claus is Coming to Town, that's the way most people picture God. You better watch out. You better not cry. You better not pout. Santa Claus is coming to town. He's making a list and he's checking it twice. He's going to find out who's naughty and nice. He sees you when you're sleeping. He knows. It's creepy if you really think about that. He knows if you've been bad or good. The whole idea behind it is the same idea that we grew up as children, many of us, of God.
That's true.
That same thing. Go to sleep in the evening, you get down on your knees, you say your prayers. After you've said your prayers, you get into bed and you know God is watching you. You know God knows what you're thinking. Well, that's Santa Claus too. There's the same idea behind it. So we have a two Christmas season that we sort of have blended together, which still is incredibly joyful. It's an incredibly joyful season. We've taken the very best of each of these and blended them together. So we've got a religious Christmas together with a commercial Christmas. And we put them together and make what we call the Christmas season, the holiday season. Now I want to talk about the third type of Christmas, two Christmases. There's a Christmas going on in your memory. There is a Christmas ideal which all of us try to reach, either for ourselves or for our children or for just simply the idea of what Christmas ought to be. And that's the Christmas that we project into the outer. That's the Christmas that we accept from the outer. Certain things are supposed to be a certain way, and if they aren't, then it's just not Christmas without them. And they must be a certain way in order for us to find what we call happiness or satisfaction during this season. For me, it's pulling out Johnny Mathis and sticking him in my car and listening to him sing Christmas carols. He's a wonderful part of my Christmas, Johnny Mathis. For other people, it may be Bing Crosby, and for others, it might be Beyonce. I have no idea. It might be somebody else singing some different kinds of songs. But for each of us, there is somebody singing to us and reminding us and opening up pathways in our mind to our subconscious, which then allows these feelings of goodness to come forth from us, and feelings of satisfaction and contentment. And without them, it's just not the same. Then there's the actual Christmas that needs to occur within every one of us. Needs, I say needs. That's the operative word here, needs to occur. It has to occur for us to grow as spiritual beings. And that is the idea that this is not just something that happened long ago to somebody else and was born and experienced a certain type of story, which we all hear every year. There's more than that. That is that the Christ, this thing that we call the Christ, is not just something that happened historically long ago. It's something that happens right here and right now within us. But that means we have to accept it. That means we have to be open to and accept the idea that if the Christ is going to be, it is up to each one of us. That it's not just an occurrence that happened one time, but it's an occurrence that happens every day to each one of us, where we say to ourselves, I am the Christ, the child of the living God. That's who I really am. That's who I really am. I'm not just the name that someone gave me at my birth on this earth. I'm not just the accumulation of all the experiences that I've had up till now and all the disappointments that have occurred in my life that are still locked in my memory. It's more than that. It's more than just some of the wonderful things that have occurred to us that have made us feel so good about ourselves. It's not just labels. It's more than that. It's an awareness of real being. An awareness of real being. Who we truly are. When that happens for us, especially at this time of the year, then that idea is given a new birth once again. Light comes. A light goes on like a light bulb above our head. A light goes on within us. And we recognize who we truly are once more. We birth within ourselves the Christed being, the Christed one. Now, some of you, including myself at one time, may say, that may be okay for you, but that's not happening to me. It can't possibly happen to me because you don't know what I've done. You don't know who I've been. You don't know what I've thought. You don't know what's happened in my life. But you see, that's the wonderful thing about it. The Christed one within each of you has never experienced any of the things that you're talking about. Has never made any of these mistakes that we speak of. Has never had any of these disappointments that we have felt. Has never experienced and exalted in the triumphs that we have had. None of that. The Christed one simply is fully present love. Fully. for everything and everyone. That's who God is. Now, am I saying that each one of you are your own God and you can do what you think and you can do what you want to do? No, not at all. We are each individualized expressions of God. We're students in a school learning to express love, learning to be love. The closer we get, the more Christed we become. Are there Christed beings, fully Christed beings on the planet right now? Yes. Well, then why aren't they doing something about some of the things that are going on? They are, in their way. It's a silent way. It's a holy way. Within them, all is calm and all is bright. And for you, the same thing can be experienced. Can be experienced. But what you must do for it to happen is believe it and then bring it into being within yourself. Not in some outer occurrence, not in some outer way, not in some outer person, but within yourself. Each one of us. So, do you want a great Christmas present this year? Experience this inner Christmas. Experience this within yourself. Create it for yourself. Imagine it and make it so. When you do, then the second Christmas, the most important Christmas that can happen in your life, will happen. Not just today, but every day.